Hey guys, welcome back to Dylan's Little Hobbies, and in today's video, in honor of episode 9, I am going back and I am watching the entire series of Star Wars. I am also reviewing them and putting them out on YouTube. I have done episode 1, 2, 3. I have also done the spin-off movies Han Solo and Rogue One. In today's video, we are going to be reviewing Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Otherwise known as Star Wars. The original, the first, the one and only, the movie. The original movie. Let's go ahead and get into my review, shall we now? What can I say about this movie that hasn't been already said before? You know, this movie has gone down in history as not only the best movie in all of cinematic history, but it's gone down as one of the most reviewed and most well-known Star Wars movie, most well-known movie out there. Star Wars is just that big of a franchise, and it all started with this first movie. Well, I will give you some interesting facts about the movie, but the number one thing that I really want to do in this video is I want to tell you my own experience and my own opinion on the very first original Star Wars movie. That is what this review is really going to be. I hope you guys do enjoy, but remember, most of this is my opinion. Without further ado, let's really get into this. So, all the way back in 1973, George Lucas was a filmmaker who just came off of the success of one of his best movies, American Graffiti. Everyone wondered what his next big project is, and for his next big project, he wanted to do a kids film. That's basically what he wanted to do, was a kids film. Little did he know that his quote-unquote kids film would be the greatest thing in all of cinematic history. Right? The fact is, he just wanted to do a kids film. He wanted to do a sci-fi movie, a science fiction movie. And the fact is, he's not a scientist. He doesn't know the root of blah 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 blah. And you know what? Most sci-fi movies up to that point, well, most sci-fi stories up to that point were based on three things. They were based on doing three things. One, science, obviously. They were trying to take an amazing scientific idea and make it come to life in a story. Two, they were trying to make that science story make sense in a world of their time period, which back in the 1973 era, you know, they didn't have as much technology as we do now. So it makes sense that these grand stories of the 21st century would interest a bunch of people. And the third thing that they really wanted to do was they wanted to basically tell the people about how this science, this incredible, interesting, and fascinating new scientific objects, scientific research, scientific discoveries could do to humanity. That's how a bunch of the first alien movies and space and time travel movies came to be. Was basically a scientific idea. Let's try to turn it into a scientific story, and let's see what the repercussions of that scientific discovery would be. That's what the original science fiction movies would be. George Lucas didn't really know anything about that. He just wanted to make a sci-fi movie, he wanted to make a kids movie, he didn't want to put a million scientific things into it, he didn't want to really have a time period, he didn't want this to be in the 21st century or anything like that. So, what he did was a very smart thing. Instead, he just made a story. He made a story in a galaxy far, far away. Somewhere where we will never be able to. But we all wish we could. His idea was pretty simple. It was basically to take the old timely stories of when he was young, the heroic story, if you will, and put in space. That's basically what it is. And that's all Star Wars really is. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but it is the indeed facts. It's not a sci-fi movie. Star Wars is not really a sci-fi movie. It has robots, it has space, it has Star Wars ships. But what Star Wars really is it's a story, and a lot of it has to take in place in a long, long time ago, back in the medieval era. I mean, back then you had. Let me tell you. Let me just lend me your ear. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You got mystical, magical wizards. Okay? You got knights in shining armor. You got kids who want to grow up and become great, powerful warriors with great, powerful swords. You got bad guys. You got princesses in distress. You got those funny sidekick characters. And you got the scruffy looking guy with transportation. All of these type of stories are medieval stories. He just did something really incredible. He took those stories of old and he put them in space. It's basically a fantasy film in space. And space. In fact, if you are a fantasy fan and you want to get into sci-fi but you really don't know how, Star Wars is probably the best way to edge yourself into fantasy. Edge yourself into sci-fi. And for those sci-fi fans who want to get into fantasy, Star Wars is a really good point to get into fantasy as well, because it's a really good medium between fantasy and science fiction, which I just really love. I mean, let's face it, all magic really is science not understood. That's all magic really is. That's the way I looked at magic all the time. Whenever I hear somebody cast spells or something like that in magical movies, I just think it's science not understood. That's how I've always thought of it. And it's the same thing in Star Wars. So let's go back. Let's go back to where you didn't know anything about Star Wars. What was your story? Let me know down in the comments below. How did you first get into Star Wars? Was Episode 4 the first film you watched? My story was pretty basic. So, and this type of story, it sounds really, really funny, but stay with me. So the fact is, my dad was a really big Star Wars fan, and back in 2002, Star Wars Attack of the Clones came out, and unfortunately, my dad had a job. He had family to take care of, so he had no chance to go to the movies. So it was about a year later, he finally had a chance to buy Star Wars Episode 2, the movie. And what he did with it is he put in, and Daddy's little girl, my sister Kylie, wanted to watch it. Now, what about me? So, this was me back then. I was a snot-nosed little brat. Everyone goes through that period in their life where they're just a snot-nosed brat, and they think whatever they do is cool and whatever their parents do is lame. So, the fact is, when I was little, I thought anything my dad was into was gonna be just lame. I wanted to watch my shows, get into my stories, you know? Who cares about an old great movie called Star Wars when I had Pokemon, for example, or something like that. You know, I was that kind of idiot. I was that kind of snot-nosed brat. And the fact is, Kylie wanted to watch every bit of it, so Dad put on the entire first trilogy, and then they watched Episode 1 and Episode 2. I did not get into Star Wars until about half a year later. That's right, until half a year later. And how did I get into it? Well, Kylie wanted to watch Star Wars again for like the millionth time, and that's when I saw this. I saw that's right, the cover of Episode 5. Not Episode 4. I saw the cover of Episode 5. This is the exact cover I saw of Episode 5. And do you see who's in the background? I saw that. I saw that. You know how everyone loves the Terminator, and a bunch of kids love the Terminator? They see this robot, monstrous, creepy figure, and they want to know everything about it. That's what Darth Vader was to me. He was creepy, he was dark, but he was interesting. I wanted to know more. And so, me, my dad, and my sister, of course my sister, but me, my dad, and my sister sat down together and watched Episode 4. Yep, that's right. That's how I got into Star Wars. I was just not nose brat at one point, but I really, really loved the first movie, and of course I never went back. I was always a Star Wars fan ever since the first time I saw Darth Vader on the Episode 5 art for the movie. That's how I got into it. Isn't that crazy? Now, what can I actually say about this film? Well, like I said, it's the hero's journey. It's everything you want in a story. I mean, the greatest thing about it, though, is what George Lucas was really able to do with it. He didn't just take it at face value. He actually turned it into an interesting story. He really focused on interesting characters. He really focused on world building, you know, talking about the Empire and the Clone Wars. What was the Clone Wars? At this point, we had no idea. We were so interested in it as soon as Obi-Wan Kenobi first spoke about it. And then you get this incredible sense of this backstory between the hero Obi-Wan, this wise old master, this wise old wizard Jedi master, and the evil bad guy Darth Vader. You get the sense that there is a story there, and at the time we didn't know what that story was. You really get the sense in this movie that there is a story. This story has very much, the world building in this movie is incredible. And focusing on these four characters, but especially the first three characters, Han, Luke, and Leia, are just perfect. And something that I really, really like is Luke, you can really say Luke is your average boy, but he has a dream. That makes him even more average. That even makes him more relatable. But here's the thing. When it comes to the scruffy-looking nerfer, Han Solo, you know, you get the sense that he doesn't like anybody, he only cares about mine. But he takes the hero route, and you can tell that even though he is a scumbag at this point, he does actually care. Which is something great. Of course, it doesn't happen for the first time you meet him, but there's just something about his character that you just instantly get into it. And then you meet Princess Leia. And my god, the best character in the movie is obviously Princess Leia. So the damsel in distress. George Lucas could have made her just a soppy woman, damsel in distress that needed a hero. And to a point, yes, she was. But something that he did that was absolutely incredible and was really important for women everywhere was he made her a character. As soon as she gets free, she takes full control and saves their own butts. It is because of Princess Leia that they survive the Death Star in Episode 4. She's just such an amazing character. And then you have Vader. Oh my god. He's not even in the movie 10 minutes. What was it? Less than 11 minutes? 10 minutes? He's not even in the movie 10 minutes. But everything you see him do, just the way he grips someone, the way he moves, and the expressionless mask, and the chilling, the very chilling when you're very little. This guy scares you. You know, the boogeyman. This was my boogeyman. The very, very chilling sound of his breathing. In the hallway, you can hear nothing, and then his breathing comes up. It just sends shivers down your spine for the first time. Oh my god. He is such an incredible, incredible character. And the best part about it was, at this point, he was nothing more but a villain. He wasn't... He had no story at this point. And in the first movie, he has no story. In Star Wars, the first movie, in Star Wars, he has no movie. And I am going to call it Star Wars, the first movie. I'm not going to call it Star Wars Episode 4, Star Wars A New Hope, because it was Star Wars, the first movie. In fact, originally, Star Wars A New Hope was called Star Wars until they made the prequels. So, there's another fact for it. The original movie, Star Wars Episode 4, was originally called Star Wars. Big surprise, right? But everything that they were able to set up, and what's incredible about it is a lot of the times they actually let the story breathe. You have certain moments in the movie that, you know, slow down, and yes, to a certain point it does slow the film down, but it needs to slow down. It will go into a huge rush, a nice slowdown, a huge rush, a nice slowdown, before kicking it up all the way to the max, which is, of course, the Death Star. Come on. I absolutely loved the Death Star scene, especially with the Death Star blowing up. Now, the characters are amazing. The actors are pretty good. They really are. Look, they're pretty young actors in this movie. They aren't perfect. Of course, they become perfect later on. But right now, in the first movie, they're pretty young, and they're pretty good actors. You gotta at least admit that. They're pretty good actors. The music, the score is amazing, but it's because of the story. It's because of the story. It's why, to me, the most important thing in any movie or show that I watch is the story, and it's because of Star Wars. Star Wars was able to create a perfect, amazing hero journey story and change it up so much that it feels like something new every time you watch it. It's such an incredible series. It really is. And we're still just talking about the first movie. Now, the special effects, for the time, they're amazing. But you have to admit, special effects, they're not perfect. And here's the funny thing, though. A lot of the times I watch newer movies, and a lot of times they have higher budgets than the first Star Wars film ever had, and yet they have worse, a whole lot worse special effects than Star Wars, the first movie, ever had. That's what's kind of sad about it. So the special effects are amazing. It's a really good picture of the time period in special effects and magic and movie magic and stuff like that. It's just a really good picture of the time period that it came from. It is one of the best films, and it's going to always be part of my childhood, at least. And hopefully, it's part of yours. Let me know your story down in the comments below. With that said, let's go to rankings, shall we? How am I going to rank this film over these films? Well, I'll tell you how. This film's the best. No, seriously, it's the best. I mean, come on. It's the first Star Wars film. It's the best. Nothing's gonna beat it. Nothing's gonna beat it. I am, of course, going to put above Episode 3. That is my list. That is my list for the Star Wars films so far. I really, really love Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Everything George Lucas was able to do with it, building this world, creating these amazing and in-depth characters. It's just a really great film, and it's just funny that this was a kids movie, because it's so much more. It's so much more. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Bye.